Why did Pilate wash his hands? So why did Pilate wash his hands? Was it just a hygiene thing or what? It's a great question that came in, and I want to read the whole question so you have the whole context of what was being asked. Hi, John. I am curious about how the trial of Jeshua is depicted in the Gospels. There seems to be an effort to play down the role of Pilate, played by washing his hands, etc. Like he wanted to let Jeshua go, but the Pharisees pushed the issue. Based on any memories you have and your biblical knowledge, do you agree with the sequence of events and causes of events as portrayed in the Synoptic Gospels and the Gospel of John? For example, do you think it was mostly Pilate and the Gospel writers who were afraid of the Romans, so they blamed the Pharisees? Thanks. There's a lot in this question, and there's a lot in the question for historical context and many other biblical historical context. Let's just start with Roman hand washing. Romans had a fetish with washing hands at the end of meetings. They would say, "I wash my hands of this matter and I move on," and they would literally wash their hands. It was very normal for a Roman person to end a case and move to the next by showing a symbolic washing of the hands. I am done, right? So, in my mind, and unfortunately, one of the memories I am missing is the one of the actual trial. I don't know how it actually transpired because I don't have that memory, and maybe someday that'll come back in again. But historically, that was a very normal thing for a Roman adjudicator to do, because it was like, we start this by hitting the hammer nowadays, right? Bang, bang, bang. Well, they used to end things by washing their hands. So him washing your hands, I wouldn't say it had anything to do with Pilate not wanting to crucify Jeshua. It was just like, I'm done with this whole matter. It was more of a brush off than anything else. That would be my take on it. And once again, it was something that was very well known that symbolic washing of hands would mean we're done with this. Whatever happens after this, I'm not involved, and don't bring me back to me because I'm done with it. 'Cause I've washed my hands of it. In fact, that's where the whole reference to washing your hands comes from originally. It's like, I'm washing my hands of this whole matter, right? People say it's biblical. It actually comes from before the biblical time. The other thing is that you have to remember that the Gospels themselves were compiled, edited, adapted, altered, and literally manipulated to favor Rome. To favor Rome and the ruling party of Constantine. Right? His mother was the one who was naming all the holy sites, right? So they couldn't have Rome be the one blamed for killing Jeshua if Rome was going to become the seat of Christianity, right? And we know that Rome had a way of saying, no, Rome is where you have to be, right? In the Bible it says to Peter, thou art the rock upon which I will build this church, right? Basically saying that he was the first pope, right? And where is that first pope buried? In the Vatican, right? In Rome. Literally in Rome, right? Peter was the one who went to preach to the Gentiles in Rome. And so, of course, because he was the one who was preaching in Rome, he had to be the one. But you dive into the Gnostic texts, and they say to Jeshua, who's in charge? Who do we go to when you're gone? And he says, go to my brother James, who stayed in Jerusalem, which is where the whole movement was centered, right? So he said that James was one in charge, not Peter. But Rome said Peter was, because the disciple who went to Rome is the disciple who has to be the leader. And that's why Rome has to be the seat of Christianity, because Peter was there. And so the whole concept of washing their hands and everything is it's less about, not about Pilate personally feeling like he didn't want to condemn Joshua. It was more about washing his hands and moving on to the next case, basically. And when Constantine got a hold of it, of course he passed it on to the Jewish people because of the fact that it couldn't be Rome. It had to be the Jewish people. And so it's all manipulated to meet the agenda of the person who was doing it. And when you look at the New Testament, which was compiled by Constantine's Nicene Council, the majority of the New Testament is written by Paul, a Roman citizen, not by the followers, but by some guy who had a vision of him after he was gone. Some guy who never met Joshua in life is the majority of the New Testament. And the other books, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, are considered to be adaptations of Gnostic texts, all from one source. And the book of John is so esoteric in a lot of places that it's harder to understand, so it's harder to interpret in various ways. And God is love is such an esoteric statement. But they were trying, and specifically Constantine and the Romans were very much trying to take Christianity up to the level of power that they knew it could go to, and they were making Rome the seat of power for Christianity. And so Pilate washed his hands because he was done with the case and he was moving on. And the rest of this is all, and blaming the Pharisees, which, let's face it, Paul himself was a Pharisee. So for them to compile him as in the books would be weird to say that, right? Say that he was one of the disciples. But was he really? Because the stuff he says, some of it very much matches the Pharisee beliefs, especially his misogynistic beliefs about women. Paul said, it's okay to beat your slave so long as he doesn't die because the slave is property. And, is that loving one another? I don't think so. Right? So it was very much a manipulated work to favor Rome. And so, and I know some people are not going to like this video because I'm saying that, but it's all right there to see. You can go find references to Roman hand washing that had nothing to do with the Bible or Joshua. It's out there. It's historical. And so that's my thought on this. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. See you. Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. The John of New channel is solely funded by your generous donations and purchases of private readings and merchandise. To help out, go to johnofnew.com or use the donation link in the description below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.